Ever looked at your parents and thought, how can they see the world so differently? Or maybe you've argued with someone younger and realized, wow, we might as well be from different planets. But here's the truth: we're not crazy. We're not broken. We're products of the time we were trained to survive in. Every generation has its own psychology, its own invisible code that shapes how we think, feel, and act. And once you understand it, you stop judging people for not getting it. You start seeing the bigger picture. So, let's break this down. Let's uncover why boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z think so differently, and what it says about you. Because this isn't just about age, it's about mindset. Every generation grows up in a different world, economically, socially, technologically, and those worlds create different brains. Think about it. A person who grew up with scarcity learns to protect what they have. A person who grew up with abundance learns to chase meaning. That's not opinion, that's conditioning. Boomers grew up after war and economic struggle. They were told work hard, stay loyal, build stability. Security was the dream. Then came Gen X, the skeptics. They saw their parents work themselves to death, companies break promises, marriages fall apart. So Gen X learned to be independent, even cynical. They trust results, not words. Then we hit millennials. Raised during optimism, told they could be anything, only to enter adulthood during financial collapse. They were trained for freedom but handed instability. That's why so many of them chase purpose, because the old rules didn't work for them. And now, Gen Z, the digital generation, born into chaos, connection, and constant comparison. Their biggest battle isn't survival, it's identity. They're not asking, what can I earn? They're asking, who am I really? See how every generation builds a mindset around the world they inherited. None of them are wrong. They're just adapted. Here's the first big lesson: we think differently because we were trained by different fears. Boomers feared losing stability. Gen X feared losing trust. Millennials feared losing meaning. Gen Z fears losing themselves. Every fear creates a behavior. Boomers save and plan. Gen X protects their space. Millennials search for purpose. Gen Z experiments, questions everything. So the next time you catch yourself saying, why can't they just understand? Remember, they literally can't. Their brain was wired to solve a different problem. Second lesson: technology didn't just change our tools, it changed our minds. Older generations grew up with scarcity of information. You had to go out and find answers. Today, we have overload. You have to learn how to filter truth from noise. Boomers trust authority because information used to come from experts. Gen Z trusts algorithms because information now comes from everywhere. It's not that one group is smarter. It's that they were trained in different battles. Imagine growing up in the 1960s. You had to memorize things, meet people face to face, and build patience. Now imagine being born in 2005. You've never known a world without Google, without social media, without instant validation. One world taught patience, the other taught speed, and patience and speed don't mix easily. That's why conversations between generations often clash. It's not arrogance, it's different realities. Third lesson: values shift when survival changes. When the world is dangerous, we value safety. When the world is stable, we value freedom. When the world feels uncertain again, we crave control. Boomers valued loyalty because stability was rare. Gen X valued independence because they lost faith in systems. Millennials value creativity because they need to reinvent themselves. Gen Z values authenticity because they're tired of pretending. Every generation's values are just their survival strategy disguised as philosophy. But here's where it gets interesting. Today's generations are overlapping. You might be a millennial with boomer habits or a Gen Z kid with Gen X grit, because identity is becoming fluid. The walls are breaking. Fourth lesson: understanding is the bridge. If you learn to see the why behind people's behavior, you stop taking things personally. Your boss isn't out of touch. He's trained for stability. Your kid isn't lazy. They're trained for flexibility. You start realizing we're all just adapting to the world we were handed, and that's where empathy begins. Because the truth is, the next generation isn't soft. The previous one isn't stubborn. They're just fighting different battles. And when you understand that, something powerful happens. You start combining strengths instead of clashing over differences. Boomer discipline with Gen Z creativity. Gen X resilience with millennial purpose. That's how progress happens. That's how generations evolve, together. So here's the takeaway. We think differently because life taught us different lessons. But if we're wise, we can learn from each other's experiences instead of judging them. The goal isn't to prove who's right. The goal is to connect, to understand how history shaped us and how we can shape what comes next. Because the moment you stop saying, "They don't get it," and start asking, "Why do they think that way?" you've already grown beyond the limits of your generation. Now I want to hear from you. What generation are you from? And what's one thing you wish other generations understood about yours? Drop it in the comments. Let's build that bridge. And if this video made you think, even for a second, hit that like button. Share it with someone older or younger than you. Because maybe, just maybe, the future depends on us understanding each other before it's too late. Subscribe if you want to keep growing with me. Because this isn't just psychology, this is how we evolve.